Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to British versus American names for certain things in the house. This is going to be fun because I've always wondered, like, in England, in the kitchen, at the sink, the thing that you turn to get water is called a tap. Whereas in America, it's called a faucet. Why is it called a faucet? You know, what is the history behind that word? And there's various other things as well, you know, like here, if you're going to relieve yourself, you go into the toilet. Whereas in America, you call it the bathroom and then you sit on the toilet. Why did, that divergence happen between what we call things and what you call things? And who better to explain this than Lawrence from Lost in the Pond? He's probably the best on YouTube for this sort of video. It's going to be fun. Let's do it.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. And one of those memos pertains to words. Specifically and scientifically, words for stuff found around the house. And so once again, in order to do this, I'm going to have to get up off this chair and go from room to room. No, just cut. I'll sit here. I'll go in my own time. Like a lot of people, I keep my cleaning implements in one of these. This is what Americans would call a closet, but sometimes in Britain, we refer to this as a cupboard. Now, since cupboards/closets can get quite dark on the inside, it's quite a good idea to have one of these around. Partly because it makes it easier to look inside the closet, but also because I like to play horror pranks on my wife. Anyway, in Britain, this is known as a torch, whereas in America, it's a flashlight.
Flashlight.
My cleaning...
But the light doesn't flash. It stays on or it stays off. Oh, flash... Why is it called a flashlight?
Implement of choice.
This is obviously a Hoover. What do you guys call? Oh, a vacuum cleaner, right? A vacuum cleaner.
This is one of these. I think we all know what this is, but we don't all have the same word for it. In Britain, Hoover. We might refer to this as a vacuum cleaner, sure, but we might also refer to it as a Hoover. Now, any Americans watching this might be thinking, that's not a Hoover, it doesn't have the Hoover branding on it. So here's the thing, Hoover is an American company that was formed in the early 20th century. It just happens that they were around at the same time as President Herbert Hoover and FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. And the popular belief is that they all sucked, especially the vacuum cleaner. But that's beside the point. The Hoover company marketed their product in Britain, and at some point the word Hoover became a genericized term for vacuum cleaner.
Just like how Google became synonymous with searching things up on a search engine. You're like, just Google it or Google that.
And that's what I mean when I talk about memos that got lost in the pond. In America, you will hear the term vacuum cleaner, but some Americans will call this a sweeper, not to be confused with the defensive position in football, soccer. Now, one of these motorized suck machines is going to be...
So this is a plug.
Useless without one of these. In case you're not familiar with plug sockets, who is not familiar with plug sockets? Perhaps people that don't call them plug sockets. To be clear, that's what I call this, having grown up in Britain.
What do you guys call it?
But in the US, they might be referred to simply as a socket or an outlet. In fact, either word might be used at different times to denote different applications. This contraption might be described as a socket when you're putting a plug into the wall, but as an outlet when describing the electricity that comes out. And if you're excited to learn more about the physical differences between British and American plugs, be sure to subscribe and hit my bell because that video is coming soon.
I do feel like our British plugs are more secure. Like the ones that, like, I think the thinness of your ones in North America, it means that you're more likely to damage it if you pull it out aggressively by accident, or you walk across the wire and it yanks it out. I think having 3 equally thick prods that go into the wall just makes it more secure and durable.
Now, here's a hypothetical scenario that I definitely just made up. What if you need to vacuum in the other wing of your house, but the other plug sockets, for whatever reason, aren't working? Firstly, call maintenance, but in the meantime, you might want to use one of these. You can't see it here, but this is a very long wire that allows you to move devices over greater distances. In Britain, we might call this a power extender, or I was known to call it an extension lead. From there, it's not too big a stretch to arrive at the American term, extension cord.
Oh, I've adopted the American one. No way.
And you join me now in the lounge, or as Americans would call it, the living room. We call it that as well. I actually just wanted to point out that we call it lounge and also apparently drawing room, although only about 7 people use that term. Yeah, anyway, you can probably hear some sounds in the background. That is my voice, Tara's voice, and that of Lavluka.
But it does when I say it, brochure.
Brochure.
In other words, this is now a reaction video of Lavluka's reaction video of Lost in the Pond. I know. This is really meta.
Very meta.
It's difficult to talk over you, Lav, so I'll just let you talk. Anyway, the important thing here is the device I'm using to watch it. In both Britain and America,
TV.
Of course, we often refer to the television as the TV. But in Britain, we also call it the telly, because we just love putting the letter Y on the end of an existing word and saying, here you go, here's a new word, right? Think brekkie for breakfast, chocky for chocolate, and Laurie for Lawrence. And of course, this is the 21st century. If I want to change the channel from Lost in the Pond to Lavluka, I don't want to have to get up and do that manually at the TV itself.
Remote.
Right, I've got a huge coffee table in the way, not to mention a huge coffee cup. So that's why we have one of these. Where I come from, this is known as a TV remote, right? And you might hear that in the United States too. You might also hear remote in both countries. But I was 26 years old and living in Indiana when I heard a Midwesterner refer to this as a clicker. To this day, I'm not really sure whether...
A clicker? How many of you guys refer to a remote control as a clicker? Be honest, leave it in the comments.
Clicker is a Midwesternism. So if you live in the United States but not the Midwest and still call this a clicker, let me know in the comments below. The first word difference to note about a kitchen is possibly the stove. That's the word that Americans perhaps use most commonly to describe the entire unit. In Britain, to describe the exact same thing, we might also use stove, perhaps even oven. But growing up, I was always fond of cooker, which linguistically pairs well with clicker. Second thoughts, do not cook your TV remotes. Of course, both Britain and America have different names for different parts of the cooker. The top part of the oven, which you might use for boiling eggs or creating impressive B-roll, is known to Brit as the hob. In America, you'll typically hear stovetop. Of course, when it comes to actually eating the food, you can't just use your hands unless you're American.
Put it on
Sometimes
a plate.
You're going to need a knife and fork. And don't get me wrong, it's not those words that differ, but the collective term we use to describe them. In
Cutlery.
Britain, these would be described as cutlery, or as I like to say, cutlery, because I'm not human. In America, the collective term for the exact same objects is silverware, or more specifically, flatware, because I don't really know why. A spoon doesn't look particularly...
Flatware? It's not very flat though, is it? I do get silverware, even though it might not be made of silver. It's probably steel or stainless steel. But yeah, flatware?
Particularly flat. But from space, neither does the Earth. And then once we're done with the eating, it's time to do the washing up. It's a boring job, but somebody's got to do it. Come here, cat. Dishes. Where you going? But this part in the process comes with quite a few word differences. Firstly, you've got what the British would call washing up liquid. In America, it's dish soap, or as Dawn is trying to push on us, dishwashing liquid. And you can't wash dishes without water, which in Britain comes out of a tap. A common synonym of this in the United States is faucet. And then you dry everything off with what the British would call it.
Is faucet like related to maybe you're forcing the water out, forcing it out? Maybe? No?
Tea towel, and the Americans a dish towel. It looks like a really terrifying puppet. Why are you shaking? Oh, that's me. I'm doing that. Well, here we are again, you and me in my bathroom, except I'm the only one who's actually here and you're just watching, which is worse. All that to say, I'm going to keep this brief. Now, have you ever used one of these? It's not a pair of underwear. It is in fact a piece of fabric with which you wash your body. Now, for the sake of time, and because the FCC said that I couldn't do this, I'm not going to show it in action. I'm just here to tell you that in Britain, we call this a flannel. In America, it's often referred to as a washcloth or a face cloth. Ironically, it looks like a puppet without a face. As with the kitchen, the same applies here. We have faucet versus tap. And I couldn't do another segment in the bathroom without talking about the toilet, because that's what I do. Sure, both countries use that very word, but each is absolutely loaded with synonyms. So in Britain, you've got loo,
Flush.
bog, latrine, lavatory, lav, porcelain firing range, and bog. In America, you have the John, the commode, the pot, the potty, the porcelain god, the crapper, and my personal favourite,
The porcelain god.
the bowl.
I think your nicknames were funnier.
And finally, you may remember in my bedroom video from earlier this year, I talked about how America has walk-in closets and Britain has wardrobes. Now that's not really relevant for this video because the two things are quite different. This was just an excuse to show off our new walk-in closet. These aren't my dresses, by the way. My dresses are over here. But if you come inside, I do have one last thing to show you, and don't worry, it's not a pair of jorts. Now, I know that this might seem sensationally weird, but in this storage facility behind me, I keep things like my underpants. The drawers are see-through, aren't they? Just pretend that what you see here isn't plastic and rubbish, and just imagine that it is in fact made of mahogany. These are just temporary placeholder drawers that we've had for 4 years. Anyway, the point is, in Britain, I would have called this, or its mahogany equivalent, a chest of drawers. Yeah. In America, no need for any chests around here. It's just drawers. Or apparently some
Another Americanism that's kind of made it across the US. I made it across to the UK.
Americans refer to a chest of drawers as a bureau, which would confuse the British and the French for different reasons. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below some of...
It's fascinating because I think quite a lot of the American versions for or names for home appliances and stuff have made it over to the UK, especially with younger people. Maybe it might be because we watch so much American TV and movies that our vocabulary is just evolving and absorbing a lot of Americanisms. Are there any of you guys across the pond in North America who use the British versions of words like bog or telly or stuff like that, extension lead? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.